And welcome back, space adventurers and writers and authors and publishers and all sorts of people who watch this stream and anybody who doesn't fit into any of those categories. Welcome back, welcome once and welcome all to the waffling stream regarding, well, generally writing stuff, okay? I haven't been here for a while. It's been a bit weird. Having holidays and stuff happening in real life. It's all been a bit hectic in the Waco household, you see, because much stuff is happening this summer because of people getting old, well, people growing up and people growing old and stuff. It's a very loud shirt. It's that time of year, I'm afraid. Yes, it is a very loud shirt. This is my, I'm still in my summer, I'm still in my summer vibe. Yes, so apologies for that. Well, no apologies. Why am I apologising? It's my shirt. I'm wearing it, I'm enjoying wearing it, I make no apology at all. There we go. Anyway, welcome back to the Monday evening writing stream. Da, 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 da. I've got no special effects, by the way. Those of you who've watched this stream for many, many years, I'm not the most technical of people. I've got the camera to work. I've got some, there's some graphics in the corner there, look, with my name on it, and there's some chat stuff going up there, which is about as sophisticated as I get. So there we go. Anyway, we're back. Right, let's do the thing, because the thing is the thing, which we must do. The Arrakis is here. Arrakis at first. First from the invasion of the Harkonnens. Forgotten all my stupid taglines. Hababubu is here. The Harkonnens are here as well, fighting off the invasion of the Arrakis. No, invading Arrakis. That's right. Let's get this right around. Commander GR1988 is here. Long-standing member of the Druids. Glenn is here as well. Commander Terraformer, good to see you. ZX81, excellent username. DJ Wiley is here as well. Haunted Loaf is here. Oh, I'm here. I'm in the chat. Excellent. Hello, me. Intermute GB. Pete SB. Kelly Bagler is here. Of course he is. Lucky Luigi is here. The Shadow Wyvern is here. Commander Dostal is on. My holiday is over. It's live waffle is back on the menu. It is. So how have you all been anyway? How have you all been? So I've been on holiday for, well, I've been on holiday for kind of a couple of weeks. We had a lot of stuff going on in our world because my youngest son is prepping to go off to university. I definitely need an intro thing saying, remember to say this. We have different people's the hats being upstick by the shirt. Maybe I should have a sort of a lower sort of kind of hat. Maybe I need to have more hat and variety. I need to get my background sorted. I will put that on my list of things to do because I used to have a space background, didn't I? I don't know what happened to that. I think I broke it. And we need to get that back. But yes, so things have been very, very, very busy in the Wagar household. We have had youngest son is preparing to go off to university. He gets his results in 10 days' time. So of course we're all on tenterhooks because if he doesn't get the results he wants, he can't go to the university that he wants to go to. Which means he either gets his second choice university if his grades aren't super duper good, and if his grades are catastrophic, then either he has to resit them, or he has to go through this system called clearing, which basically is anybody who didn't get the results they want basically rings up every university in the entire land and says, "Can I come to your university, please?" Which sounds very chaotic, but I don't know. But we're reasonably confident he's going to be okay. So that's something. Then my wife's had her 50th birthday, bless her. She doesn't look a day over a much smaller number, 35 or 40, I think. So that's quite good. So there's a bit of celebration of her 50th birthday. Of course, we went on holiday as well. I did a bunch of stuff. So yes, I'm only literally just getting back into the streaming, and I've still got a few gotchas ahead. This week will be okay, apart from Saturday, unfortunately. For those wondering what the heck happened to my retro streams, they are coming back, but there's just too many stuffs going on, and weekends are really, really hard, unfortunately. So I am working on getting back into the streaming on a regular basis, but there still may be some things. Summer is just one that sort of time, so I can't guarantee things getting back to properly normal until probably September, but we'll get there. We will get there, and the streaming will continue. Okay, so it's all good. Is that my somewhat brisk and mildly peeved T-shirt? It is. I was trying to come up with what. I mean, I don't know why we ended up watching it. We ended up watching the Fast and the Furious movies. Again, my sons really like them. Probably because there's lots of semi-naked women jumping up and down in front of cars. The streaming will continue until morale improves. Exactly right. And I feel that's my task in life. Okay, to inflict this upon you. So I don't know why we ended up watching the Fast and Furious, but it was it makes me laugh because I know something about cars, right? I know something about cars, and I watch these particularly the early ones where there is actually some car-related material. Whereas in the later ones, it's turned into complete science fiction and fantasy, which is of course not outrageous for this particular stream. But I was watching these first ones. I was like, are they talking about the modifications they make to the cars and the stuff that happens with the computer display? So it's all very, very, very silly indeed. But it's sort of popcorny movie. But it's the Fast and the Furious. I mean, it's very American, right? I know there's quite a few of you on the stream who are Americans, so this is all meant with a dab of fun. But it's the Fast and the Furious. It's not the actually pretty damn quick and pretty cross, right? It's the Fast and the Furious, and it just put me into thinking: so what would the British version of this be? Because our culture over here really isn't quite. I mean, we do have fast cars, right? We do have fast cars in the UK and in Europe as well, as you well know. But we don't. Car culture in the UK isn't really centred around quarter mile times and things like that. It's basically turn up in a field somewhere and marvel that you've got there, basically. And then get the spanners out so you can fix your car, so hopefully you can get home again. That's what UK car culture is like. For the most part, the slightly annoyed or somewhat brisk and actually driving quite quickly today, and mildly peeved is about as close as we got. So there we go. We don't have any streets straight enough for drag race. No, all of our streets have corners in it. In fact, some of our roads don't have enough places for two cars to go side by side, even though they're two-way. Okay, so this confuses people actually who do drive in the UK and go down some of the smaller roads. Is that we have passing places. So if you meet a car coming in the opposite direction, one of you. And there's some very, very complicated social rules as to who reverses up. Basically, one of you has to reverse. okay, to the little indent in the side of the road to allow the other car to come past. And of course, what happens is one of three things. Okay, one is that the moment you see the other car, you instantly stop and flash your headlights, and you start reversing. But in a display of kind of inferiority, or you become really aggressive. No, I'm the alpha driver here, and I'm coming through, and you're going to reverse into the parking space. Much more common though than both of those options in the UK is that both drivers reverse into the parking spaces, try to be incredibly polite, and they flash their headlights at each other, and there's a sort of impasse of politeness while one of us eventually gives up and feels that we have to be rude and actually come past the other person. And you can be stuck there for years, So yes, we're not the fast and the furious in this country. We really aren't. Was the word turbo involved? Yes, I'm sure. I miss the days in the 80s when you had the if your car had a turbo, it said so in massive letters down the side of your car, didn't it? Those were the days. Those were the days. Do you follow RAF Luton on Twitter? They're good for a laugh with their deliberate aircraft mistakes. I haven't tried that. No, I'm going to have to follow them. That kind of good. It's not everyone's idea of America. No, I'm sure it's not. It's just it's one of those things. It's like that film. What's the film that I really love? But it's just really funny. The Independence Day, where the aliens come down and the Americans save the world, as they do quite often. When there's an alien invasion, the Americans always save the planet, which is good. We need you guys for, right? And that's your job. That's the reason you're here. Okay, when the alien invasion happens, you guys save the day, right? That's the point of America. But it's just the response in the cinema. I just remember it so clearly when I watched it, and it was a good film. I mean, it's a silly popcorn film, but it's a fun film. When the British guys come on screen. And it's a classic. This is what the Americans think the British are like. So us British guys are sitting there in our dugouts, waiting for the Americans to invent some super plan to defeat the thing. And when the Americans eventually do come up with a plan to defeat the alien menace, they use Morse code to communicate it out to all the other countries in the world. And the British guys basically say, "Well, it's about bloody time too. What do we do?" Just never change, guys. Never change. Which has got absolutely nothing to do with the topic of tonight's talk, as per usual. And for those of you who've not come to the stream before and thinking, what, this is supposed to be something about writing and publishing, wasn't it? Yes, it is. However, it is a long tradition on this stream that on this stream, maybe a stream, that I don't get to the topic straight away. Alas, please forgive me. It's just one of those things. I can be succinct. People find this very, very, very hard to believe. In fact, virtually impossible to believe, in fact, because there's no evidence. No evidence whatsoever to indicate that I can be succinct, but I can be succinct if I put my mind to it. The problem is I'm ad-libbing this straight to the camera, you see. I haven't sat down and thought about what I'm going to say at all before the stream, other than I know what topic I'm covering. So this is like one of those annoying chat shows when they're just filling time, okay, before the main act comes on. Unfortunately for you guys, there is no main act. All you've got is me. So we'll get to the topic. We will get to the topic. No change there. No, exactly. Yeah, live from the coal bunker. Waffleception. It's waffle time. So we do get. Well, I get distracted because obviously you guys are just a bunch of text on the screen. Although I have what's increasingly weird, of course, is I have now met quite a few of you in real life through various reasons, and hopefully I'm not I'm not too much of a disappointment in real life. I'm hopefully very fairly real. Yeah, pretty much the same as I am on the stream. Hopefully, all those 130,000 to 700 word novels very succinct. Yeah. So no, I can be succinct. In fact, a lot of my work I have to be very succinct, and I do try and sit down and think about things. and come to some reasonably well thought out conclusions. But when I'm speaking live, I'm just having fun. So there we go. You are all bots who just try to derail the stream. That is your purpose. Yeah, we've all established we have a purpose in life. That's right. Or it's a really smart British guy who figures out how to beat the bad aliens and sends the Americans to do it. Aha! You rumbled us. So there we go. So anyway, it's good to be back. It's good to be back streaming. Actually, I do miss the streaming actually because I'm particularly after lockdown and stuff. And it was interesting actually. I think I mentioned this probably on my last stream, but going to LaveCon as a convention where I met some people, or met a large number of people in one kind of go that I had met before. Some of them I'd met before. Having conversations with people. It was a bit strange actually because you do get out of the habit of talking to people. So I've noticed that in myself over the last 2 years that it's hard to get back into a conversation. Some of the skills you can't. Well, obviously I can have a conversation with somebody, but it's actually hard work. You have to concentrate on all sorts of things that you kind of weren't quite so aware that you had to do before COVID happened. So there's definitely a sense of acclimatizing to talking to groups of people again, which was a bit weird. I hadn't really anticipated that. Have I got a rip or an egregious fold in my? I think I probably have. Yeah, there's something there, isn't there? What is that? Is that a rip in time? It's there. There is it. I can't put my finger because it's in reverse. There's a strange rip in time. There's a crease. There's a horrendous crease in my green screen. Let me see if I can smooth it out a bit. There we go. It's not quite gone. I'll sit in front of it and maybe I'll get sucked through the rift in my green screen. I forgot to answer the problem is it's been rolled up for a while. It's obviously rolled up with a crease in it, which I'm gonna have to iron the universe. Yeah, we'll figure that out. Chris Fikey says, I resent the implication that's error. But there we go. You never get to ride a bike, but it still feels a bit odd after. Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, it just felt strange. It was odd to meet a bunch of people kind of up close and in person. And it does take you a while to get used to those sort of things. And streaming actually is kind of like a bit of a halfway house in the sense that you can talk, but there's kind of nobody there, except bits of text on the screen. Which, if I'd gone to the convention and I just talked and people held up little bits of paper with words on them, I'd have been quite happy. It's not quite how it works in real life. But there we go. Never mind. So there we are acclimatised. We are getting back, and of course back to the writing. Now I must admit. My writing productivity in the last month has been virtually zero, so I really need to get back onto it because I got to about 60,000 words in my current work in progress, which is my Higari novel, and I've kind of stopped, and I need to get back into it. I had a whole bunch of work that I had to do before I went on holiday, which was unrelated to writing, unrelated to streaming. It's a totally separate thing because I've been working with an old colleague of mine who's known me since 25 years ago. It's quite weird. We both had hair when we started out. And he's been building a business and I've been kind of providing a bit of consultancy to him. So that's been taking up a bit of time as well. So I really need to get back on top of my writing stuff. The problem is for the next month, we've got so many things happening. So I've got to get my son away to university, we expect in the next month. That's the next month's job. Because he's going off to university, he's currently on summer holiday, so I'm taking him out every so often to do kind of basically sort of adventure stuff that my wife won't do with him or us. My other son's at work, so he can't go. So we're basically going. We're doing stupid stuff like we're climbing through trees. Something called Go Ape tomorrow, where as far as I can tell, you clamber up a tree and then basically jump off again, holding onto a rope, lots of times over and over again. So that's tomorrow. We're also going canoeing. We've got some major cycling epic to form, and we're undertaking something called sand yachting, which sounds very, very exciting. So I'm quite looking forward to that. Where basically you have a small kind of go-karty thing, which is actually a tripod with only 3 wheels, a massive sail, and then basically you hoon up and down the beach, precariously out of control, I imagine. Kind of in command of this sand yacht. Now, a sand yacht sounds like quite a good thing for a novel, actually. So I'm quite looking forward to maybe pinching some inspiration from it. If it works, then we don't die horribly. So is Higar still on target before the end of the year? Well, that is a very good question. That's a very good question. To which my answer is a little bit nervous at the moment. I am going to have to get my finger out, properly get my finger out in order to get it done. So, because it's now August, right? And I always think of August as about halfway through the year, but it's not, is it? It's like 2/3 of the way through the year. So, yes, I need to, as you Americans would say, I need to get my ass in gear. Okay. And I've had some structural problems with the book, so I've got quite a lot of work to do. It's not just a case of writing. I've had to rethink a few bits and pieces, and I've put 3 big comments in the current document, basically saying this needs fixing, this isn't right. What will my family buy me for Christmas if a car isn't done? Yeah, so I am aware of this. I am aware of this. I need to redouble my efforts and get my writing back in shape. So yeah, even super efficient published authors like myself, no, not really, do run into not so much productivity problems, but just life. I don't know, getting in the way. It's really irritating. in a good way. But finding quality time, and we've talked a little bit about this on the stream before. Is what environment do you need to have to write effectively? It's harder, I think, in the summer. One of the big problems I have here in the UK, particularly actually this year, because the temperature's been so high. And obviously we had the 40 degree 100 Fahrenheit thing a few weeks ago, and then apparently this week it's going to get up to 35, sort of 90 again. Is of course you have to have the windows open, and I don't generally like having the windows open during the day because so much damn noise comes in, particularly the space birds. Now that's quite a nice sound, but they are really annoying, and they're quite noisy. There are also space squirrels, which are quite annoying as well, because they chuck, particularly this time of year, they chuck acorns at the windows. That's a bit distracting. Then there's also the bloody Spitfires, which some of you have heard on this stream before during the day. And yeah, they buzz my house because unfortunately I'm on the flight path to a World War II airfield called Biggin Hill, and the Spitfires fly from Biggin Hill to the White Cliffs of Dover, where the bluebirds are over. Not that there are any bluebirds in the UK, but because the song is totally inaccurate. But anyway, there we go. So these wretched Spitfires. It's a nice sound, the Spitfire, right? I don't mind the nice V12 Merlin engine like any other mechanically orientated person. But okay, the Spitfire takes a good 5 minutes from the point you hear it to the point you can't hear it again. And all that time I'm going, yeah, and it's thrown me from my writing. So I find summertime actually really a bad impact on my productivity because of all the noise. I'm one of these people who kind of has to sort of sit in. Now I do sometimes put my earphones in and sort of put some music on, but I find music quite often doesn't help either. I just want some quiet, okay, to any noise, and it's quite a hard thing to get. So all sorts of problems. So to be fair, my next novel was supposed to be coming out mid-2002. Yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah, it's the danger of putting in things. Have I tried White Noise? I have tried White Noise because I thought that sounds perfect, and I didn't like it. I just found it really irritating. What I do have is I have one piece of music now that's I've found, which I've played over and over again, which I tend to I think I mentally associate with writing. So that works quite well. The problem I have is that I've tried all sorts of different earphones. I've got quite a nice pair actually. These are the most comfortable ones I've found. Go and get them. These ones are quite good. I've got some nice JVC, I don't know if you can see that, but noise cancelling headphones. And they are great, but I can only manage about an hour and a half with these things on. Because I find I get a pressure build up in my ears and it just hurts. So It's like, then I'm just going, I'm in agony, trying to write. So that doesn't work either. So it's, yeah, it is a challenge, noise particularly. And it's, certainly in lockdown it was quite hard as well, because there's partly you're not doing anything else other than sitting in front of a computer, which isn't good for you for all that long. But then the Richard doorbell's always going off. It's Amazon delivering something, or the neighbours popped round, or the dogs escaped, or whatever it happens to be. So all the trials and tribulations. It's actually surprisingly hard to get 2 solid hours of time where there isn't any interruption. And that particularly for me is, if I get interrupted, if I'm in the middle of something, if I really get into it, I can bang out 5, 6, 7,000 words in a session, right? I can really get into it and really go. But if I get interrupted by a noise, or the doorbell goes, or the Spitfire comes across, or a squirrel chucks an acorn at the window, responding to that trips me up entirely, and it takes me a really long time, good maybe 15 minutes, half an hour, to try and get back into the zone. It's tricky. It's tricky. So any tips? Any other ideas are always good to try, because it is. But I do have a piece of music now. What is it called? It's actually called the Dartmoor Symphony. Let me see if I can find it, just in case it's useful for anybody else. It's one of those pieces of music that's really nice. I think I've mentioned it before. It's not particularly well known, because it's kind of where is it? Nigel Shaw. There we go. I'll chuck it in the chat. So this for me is a really nice. I won't play with it because I'll get a copyright thingy, and I'm still fighting copyright thingies. There we go. There's this one. It's not all that well known. It's just really. It's a nice piece of music to listen to, but it's not. Dare I say, this is probably a horrible thing to say about the composer, but it's not too challenging to listen to, and it doesn't interrupt your thinking process. It's just really nice, mellow background music. So I rather like that, and it when I listen to it, my brain kind of goes, aha, it's writing time. So I kind of switch into the right mode. The entirety of Shadewood was written to that piece of music, by the way. So that's the best advert I can give for it. Use an ambient recording of a Kent summer day with appropriate sounds and listen to that. But that's what I've got. So there's all sorts of problems. Anyway, that's enough waffling about all my problems. So I will get back on the case with my writing, but it has drifted. I haven't made as much progress on my audio recording, because that virtually comes to a halt in the summer, because again of the open window problem. When I eventually move house, hopefully in a couple of years, I will create a proper sound studio with deadening and stuff, but I just can't reasonably do it here, unfortunately. I've also been distracted. I don't know if you saw it on Twitter, but I've also bought one of those. I don't know if you can see that, my keyboard. So I bought myself a keyboard because I need some music, and I was struggling to play on a small size keyboard. So I bought myself a full size keyboard that I can now plug into a computer, which is another thing to fiddle with. Takes me away from all the other things I'm supposed to be fiddling with. Anyway, there we go. So yes, procrastination central. This is still the preamble. Yes, I'm almost finished with the preamble. Sorry. It's a nice keyboard. This is a Yamaha. What is it? It's a Yamaha EW425. There we are. Hopefully in time some demos of what that can do will come your way. I'm hoping to rewrite the intro music actually and do it myself at some point, once I've figured out what all the buttons will do. Hobbies will expand until one has no time to do any of them. Yeah, the long way to follow up to the three-body problem, which is the open window problem. So I do have problems with open windows. So once the temperature begins to subside, hopefully in about a month or time, my productivity should pick up. I do find I sometimes need to swap, because I think I do a lot of writing, and then my brain basically goes, no, that's it, you had it. So I either have to go out. Now my normal thing, of course, would be to take the dog for a walk. Unfortunately, my poor dog who is now 14, bless her, isn't up to going for walks anymore. She can just about manage to stumble up to the park, do her business, and then I have to tidy up the business, and then we walk home again. That's all the poor little dear can manage now. So the days of good sort of 4 or 5 mile hikes with the dog are alas long past. So now what we have to do in the morning, we have to take the dog for its walk, but then we bring it back, and then we go for our walk. Then we have to explain to all the other dog walkers that we met that no, the dog's fine, it's just not with us because it can't go with us. So yeah, the same conversation every day with very different walkers. Oh, what's happened to your dog? And then she's fine. And of course, one day she won't be. But anyway, my trials and tribulations of being me currently right now. This is very, very long-winded explanation of why I haven't done enough writing. So this is what writers do, actually. We spend an awful lot of time justifying why we haven't done any writing. And that's basically what I've spent the last half an hour doing. Right, let's talk about publishing. Let's get to the topic. Now, the previous session, I had to look it up on YouTube because I've forgotten what we were talking about, but we were talking about drafting. And the idea of drafting, obviously, to get you to a point where your novel is, as a piece of text, probably in a Word document or whatever it is that you've been using, is ready. Okay, is ready. Just everybody, you've got an invisible dog. Oh, a yo-yo. I like yo-yos. I'm quite good at yo-yos, actually. I shall do some yo-yo demonstration at some point. That to be quite. Yeah, yo-yos. That's not a bad idea. I can't remember the last time I saw a yo-yo. You're walking the dog. Yeah, very good. I could do that once. You need a decent yo-yo though, don't you? Where it isn't tied at the bottom. Yeah. Anyway, never mind. Stop distracting me. Right, we're talking about publishing. So we've come up with a draft, okay, which is basically the text that you have in your word processor is ready, okay, and that's after multiple edits and all the sort of stuff that we talked about. Now, what you do with it next is entirely dependent on how you want to go about publishing your book. And there are, as you're probably aware, multiple ways to do that, right? You can self-publish it. You can what is quite often rather derogatorily called vanity publish it. And so self-publishing is basically where you do all the work, okay, as the writer. You go, you format it, you prep it, you work on all the bits and pieces you need to do to publish it, and you do all that work yourself. Okay, you do all that work yourself. Vanity publishing is basically when you pay somebody to do all that work on your behalf. And there's quite a lot of little bits and pieces that you need to do, so we'll cover those in a bit. There's also what would arguably be called the sort of traditional way of publishing, which is a bit more long-winded, and usually involves getting yourself an agent who will represent your work and then take it to a publisher, and then the publisher will go, yay, hopefully. The agent's job is a complicated one as well, so we'll go into a little bit of that. And there's sort of sometimes hybrid models as well to the various. But those are the three main routes. So we'll look at them kind of one at a time, and possibly in reverse order. Okay. So traditional publishing. So before the internet. Okay. Way back in the ancient mists of time. When we were still using typewriters and things like that, there was that was pretty much the only way to publish a book, okay, because there was no internet, there were no alternatives to this process. So what you had to do, now most of the time you can't approach a traditional publisher directly, because they just won't talk to you, because who the hell are you? Okay, you're some unknown dude or dudette on the internet, or out there in the world, who has this crazy idea of wanting to publish a book. Basically, the publishers are way too busy. Okay, publishers are there to make money. They are a business. They're not going to almost certainly take a risk on somebody completely unknown, sending them an unsolicited manuscript, from with no preamble. Okay, that just doesn't really happen. So, if you want to and traditional publishers will be names that you recognise, like HarperCollins and kind of the big names. Anything that you'll see on the back of a book. Penguin is quite a big one in the UK, for example. Gollancz is a well-known science fiction one, for example. The big names in the publishing industry that you would recognise as having writers on their lists who are pretty famous. Okay, so household names. Random House is another good one. Yeah. So all those sort of places. Okay, so those are the traditional publishers. Now, where do the traditional publishers get their books from? They get them from agents. Okay, so the job of an agent is to basically connect an author with a publisher for a fee, of course. Now, the idea being the agency is looking for writers who will create works that are really, really appropriate for the publisher. So, the agent is looking for maybe the next big thing. They might be looking for more of the same stuff that already sells well. Okay, or they might be looking for very genre specific stuff. They might be looking for social political types. So if you're if you're like me, or a white middle class dude, you may not be in the catchment area for the kind of authors they're looking to represent right now. That's a very common thing right now. If you're an ethnic minority, you might be far better placed to be receptive to certain agents, okay, and certain publishers too. So an agent is looking for something very specific. What they want to do is they want to be able to pitch something to the publisher with a very, very high degree of the publisher going, yes, that's what we're looking for. So the agent has very close relationships with the publishing houses and knows what the publishing houses are after. Okay, so it's not a case that you can write something in an established genre or write something in a genre that is you've broken the genre rules, like I do, and expect to go straight to publishing. You just can't do that. Okay, it doesn't really work. Okay, so traditional publishing is very much who you know, and who you have influence with, and does your work fit into what is in vogue at the time. Now, this is the same with games publishing. Okay, and to use an Elite reference here, for those of you who follow Elite and know much about Elite, the idea, that one of the big problems with computer games, space games in particular, is they went out of vogue. In the 2000s, okay, the last space games were kind of published in the early 2000s. Then they just stopped, right? And in games publishing, what you tend to do is when a game is successful, everyone goes, well, we need one of them, right? We need one of them. Let's make another one of those type of games because that one sold really, really well. So we'll make some more. And then you tend to get kind of cookie cutter games coming out. And book publishing is very, very similar. So if something's successful, the publishers are all looking around saying, what have we got that's similar? Because that's the thing that we want to push. The last thing they need at that stage is a bunch of experimental stuff, right? No, we don't want any of that. We want something that's as cookie cutter as we can make it without looking like we're plagiarizing something, all right? Because they know that stuff sold because it's been majorly successful. So we're going to do the same thing but a bit different, but not too different, so that everyone recognizes it's kind of similar. Okay, which explains why we have a lot. Certainly we had a lot of Tolkien-esque fantasies for quite a long time. Decades ago. It explains why we had lots of vampire romance stories for a very, very long time, right? It explains why we had lots of boy wizard or young person wizard witch type stories for quite a long time. Okay, so that's one thing that happens a lot. If you have something that is quite similar to something that's very successful, you may have a better chance of getting published because you're just in vogue at the time. There's also in traditional publishing the Hello, I've written a book about a magician called Barry Rotter. Yes, exactly. And movie production is like that too. We've seen it. We've seen it so many times. And after a while, a bit of fatigue comes in. And everyone then is looking around for the next thing that is actually quite a lot different to what's gone before, because now we need something fresh and new. And sometimes you may or may not time it right for those kind of things. So that's one aspect of traditional writing. The second one is genre. Okay. Now I'm not a big fan of genre, but which is one of the reasons I don't traditionally publish. I've never really bothered trying, because genre is very important sometimes with traditional publishing, because some publishers are very specific on the genres they will publish. Galant's, for example, is sci-fi and fantasy. So that's what they do. You look at other publishing houses, they will specialise in particular areas and they won't publish other things. And if you're going to write genre fiction, you've got to write in the kind of established rules of that genre. Okay. Now, if that doesn't appeal to you as a writer, then you're not going to get published in those areas, because they just won't want what you've got. So this comes back down to, why are you writing? Are you writing to be published and tell a lot of books, or are you writing to tell the stories that you want to tell? Because if you're writing to tell the stories that you want to tell and you're breaking the established genre rules, you may find it extremely difficult to find a traditional publisher through that route at all, because they just don't do that sort of thing. This is quite a common thing. So all those sort of things are things that you need to consider. Now, the agent that you approach. Now, the agent, what does the agent do? Now, the agent makes money. It doesn't make money from you. Okay, it doesn't make money from you, the writer. Okay. The agent's job is to get you some money, which sounds like a great thing. But the only place the agent can get money from is the publisher. Okay, so the agent will negotiate a rate for your book with the publisher, and that's a complicated thing as well in terms of what's called an advance, which is a bunch of money that you have up front, and then the number of books you then have to sell to earn back that advance. And then the number of books you have to sell after you've earned back your advance to actually make the book fairly successful, because there's all sorts of costs involved. The agent needs a cut, you clearly need a cut, the publisher needs a cut. There's all sorts of bits and pieces in there that everyone needs a cut. So your book actually has to be really successful with a traditional publisher to get anywhere. If you don't sell 10,000 copies in your first year, your book's a flop. If you go with a traditional publisher, okay, and we're talking mainstream kind of fiction, science fiction, literary fiction stuff here, okay, because you simply won't cover the costs of the book being produced, not just your own work, but everybody else's work involved. So the agent is basically, what the agent is looking for is, have I got a writer here who is good enough for me to pitch a book to the publisher? The publisher goes, yeah, we can sell 10,000 copies of this. Or not, and that's the nous, if you like, that the agent has. Okay, now if the agent doesn't think that your book will sell 10,000 copies, he isn't going to pick you up. It's as simple as that. So your submission to the agent, and the agent is the person you approach. Okay, the agent is the person you approach with your manuscript. If the agent doesn't think your book is up to scratch and will potentially entice a publisher into spending some money, because the publisher spends the money, paying the agent and paying you up front, and then putting the book into production and getting it distributed to bookstores. If the agent has no confidence that your book isn't good enough, he's not going to pitch it to the publisher. Okay, the agent wants to be utterly convinced that your book, this is brilliant. They need to be absolutely completely convinced that your book is got a really, really good chance of being a bestseller before they even go to the publisher, because they've got to go and convince the publisher, right? If any of those things aren't right, you won't get past the agent. And if your manuscript isn't at all good for whatever reason, you're going to get a rejection letter from the agent, and that's where most rejection letters come from, is from the agent. Okay. So agents only work on commission. That's very much true. You do not pay an agent Never. Okay, never pay an agent. An agent works on commission. Exactly right, Gian 1988. So to answer that one, Glenn, don't pay an agent. Right? You're not. That's not how it works. An agent is there to secure you, the writer, the best deal from the publishing house. But they're only going to do that if they think your book is absolutely amazing. Okay, so what you need to do is you basically need to, convincing an agent that your book is actually worth looking at. That's the hard bit, right? Convincing the agent, basically bagging an agent, is a hard bit. Now, if you go to any kind of literary agent now, the other thing you must do if you're serious about this, there's a book you need to get. Okay, this one. Okay. Now there will be different versions of it in different countries, but this is the British one. Okay, look at the apostrophes in the right place. It's really good. The writers and artists yearbook. Now this is the old one. It'll be out of date, so you have to buy a new one. I can't remember how much it is. Let's say 15 quid then. I don't know how much it is now. It's probably online by now. Back in the day it wasn't. But what this basically has in it is a list. And you can I don't know if you can see the spine there. So the pages, they've got that kind of indentated culling. This is a list of all of the literary agents, in this case in the UK and Ireland, who publish stuff, right? And what genres they publish, and how you contact them, and what they are specifically looking for. So I might choose one at random. So here's one, for example. Right, Teresa Chris Literary Agency Limited, right? Where are they? They're in London, telephone number. They accept all fiction, especially crime, women's commercial, general and literary fiction, all non-fiction, especially history, cooking, arts, garden and crafts. No science fiction. Okay? Horror, fantasy, short stories, poetry, academic books. No reading fee. Send an introductory letter describing work, first 3 chapters and a stamped addressed envelope. Representation in all overseas territories, founded in 1988. So that's a typical intro, okay? No science fiction. Whoever these guys are, they don't want any science fiction. So, for God's sake, don't send them any science fiction, okay? Okay. So here's another one. Let's just literally try randomly picking some. Let's go to a different page. Randomly pick one here. Okay. So Green and Heaton Limited. This one's actually got a website. Yeah, very, very high tech. Okay. All types of fiction and non-fiction. No poetry or original scripts for theatre, film or TV. Send a covering letter, synopsis and first 3 chapters with stamped address envelope and or return postage. Email submissions considered at discretion. Overseas associates worldwide. Okay, blah, 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 blah. Right. Okay, so what this tells you is if you're going to approach an agent, it tells you precisely what you do need to do and what you don't need to do when you approach them. If you don't follow their instructions to the letter, your submission is in the bin straight away. Okay, so if you're serious about getting an agent, and let's go and visit just out of interest. There's some in here I circled for reasons I can't remember. Let's oversee. There's an entire section actually in here, which is definitely worth a read. I haven't summarised it here. Is basically I don't know if you can see that. I think I need an agent. So what do they do and stuff. It says worth reading up quite a lot of stuff. And some of them want a CV. Okay, some of them want a CV, which means you have to put something very specific in about yourself. You have to sell yourself. Why would I bother reading your book? Are you a serious author? What have you done before? What are you planning to do in the future? How old are you? What's your background? What do you do? All those sort of things. Here's another one. Full-length fiction only. No science fiction fantasy. Some of them are very specific. We don't want any of that rubbish. Approach by letter, not telephone. Sending first 2 chapters and synopsis. Submissions by email cannot be considered. So, you know, etc., etc., etc. So they're very, very busy people. Basically, what you have to remember is these people probably have thousands of submissions every few weeks. Okay, and out of that, they're going to choose one, right? So, you know, they're busy people. Let's just. I'm trying to find one here that's got a website. Let's just go and have a quick look at one, right? Just to sort of let's see if they exist. I'm going to try the one we talked about earlier on. This is the Carolyn Sheldon Literary Agency. Okay, do they still exist? They do. Excellent. Right. Okay. So about us. Let me switch there. Okay. So let me just move that down so we can see the screen, and the text will still work. So I haven't picked these guys out for any reason other than I've just literally hoiked them out of the directory at random. So this is not an endorsement, nor is it a critique. So if anybody knows the Carolyn Sheldon Literary Agency, then do this. Okay, so here we go. What do they do? Okay, the Carolyn Sheldon Literary Agency is one of the UK's leading literary agencies representing a bestseller roster of authors and illustrators. Our particular areas of interest are fiction and all types of children's books. Okay, so it's probably not a natural fit for science fiction already. Okay, so Carolyn Sheldon herself founded the agency 30 years ago after working as a publisher of women's fiction and children's books. Okay, so you get a feel for the kind of stuff that they're going to be looking at. We have a reputation for sending only high quality manuscripts and illustrations to editors and art directors, but placed at the top of their pile. We are always open to accepting new authors and illustrators. We are extremely selective. They all will be extremely selective. Okay, we only take on those whose work we love. Okay, so who do they have on their list? Okay, so these are all the people who they do have. Do we know any of them? Sometimes, depending on the literary agent, you may have heard. Now, the thing that jumps out of here immediately to me is that they're all women, apart from this guy here and this tree. Oh, and this guy here. Okay, so most of them women. So there's this is an agency that's biased towards female authors. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what they do. So it probably wouldn't be on my short list of agents to talk to. But you need to have a look at what the literary agency is all about. Okay, what kind of work do they publish? Agents here. So they've got two. I've got Carolyn herself and another one. She does illustrators and picture books. Women's fiction and children's books. Okay, so that's what this literary agency is all about. Okay, now becoming a client. This is interesting that all of them will have that. All of them will have this. How do you approach us? Okay, now interesting enough. Okay, and you'll see this quite again. This is quite common. Okay, temporarily closed to new proposals. This is very, very common. Okay, quite often you'll find the perfect literary agency. You'll click on this button and you go, damn, can't submit anything because they're busy. Okay. So you'll quite often find that the agents we've got more than we can do with. Okay, we're busy. We've got too much stuff. We can't cope with any more incoming. All right. However, let's assume they were accepting proposals. What you'll notice here is that send the work by email in this case to Carolyn Sheldon. In the subject line of the email, put proposal, title, work, your name. Okay, so you have to be very, very specific. Include a 3-sentence synopsis of your work at the top of your email. In your email, include any relevant information about yourself, such as your experience, your ambitions as a writer of your previously been published. The first 3 chapters or the first 10,000 words is a very common request. Picture book proposals, don't know much about them. Please ensure all attachments are in doc or PDF format. So that's one for those of you who are not using Microsoft Word to create things. You're probably going to have to put it into Word or something similar to Word at some point, or directly create it into PDF so it's acceptable for this kind of process. Clearly label everything. Have a look at our pet hates, a list of things we find unhelpful when receiving proposals. This is quite interesting. Okay, so checklist of a few things we find unhelpful. A proposal email doesn't tell us enough about you. Okay, Interesting. Proposal emails from writers without a 3-sentence synopsis of the proposed book at the head. So basically, don't ignore their requests, okay? And all the agents are a little bit different, all right? All the agents are a little bit different. Emails, letters, or telephones ask us whether we're happy to read or look at work, okay? Don't waste time trying to call us. Don't call us, we'll call you. We ask for the first 3 chapters of books. Don't send non-consecutive chapters. If you're not confident in your earliest chapters, your manuscript is probably not ready. Revise it and send it once you're happy. Submissions on CD, memory sticker and elaborate boxes arriving by post. Just please keep it simple. Okay. Proposals on obviously carpet bombing the whole of the writers and the artist's yearbook. Oh damn, she's rumbled us. Okay. There it is. So you may approach a few agents, but if it looks like you're approaching everybody in town, the delete button beckons. Okay, these guys know each other. All right. So an invitation to follow a chain of links. Sign up to my newsletter, Mr. Agent. Don't do that. Okay. Proposal without your manuscript or samples attached. We don't mind if you forget to attach something here, but when you realise, please don't send us the missing attachment. Resend the entire proposal. Okay, so make it easy for them. Make it easy for them. Glenn says, is currently closed for unsolicited submissions just a bit of bullshit to thin out their submissions, or can you take their statement? No, you can take their statement seriously. They do update those on a regular basis. You'll notice it has a time on it. Where is it? Becoming a client. In 30th of September 2022, that's actually very precise. That means that basically they've got too much work to complete this financial year. Or the calendar year to which they operate, which oddly enough sometimes runs to the academic year. In particular in the UK, this may be different in the States depending on how they work, but quite often agents will run to the academic year in the UK, which is September to the following June, July, when everybody goes on holiday. Okay, so if there's a date like that, it's probably genuine. So that gives you an idea. Okay, let's choose another one at random. Let's carpet bomb the writer's and artist's yearbook. What else have I got in here? I like some of them for some reason. There's picture agencies, theatre producers. There's lots of stuff. Let's see if I can find one actually that does have science fiction as allowed, shall we? See what we can actually find. Thrillers, fiction. Does anybody like science fiction? There's not as many as you think, actually. An awful lot of people, specifically say in here no science fiction or fantasy. So it's that was interesting to me when I first read it. Let's see. Right, here's one. Okay, so the Dorian. This one may not have a website. I have to look them up directly. Let's see if we can. They may not exist, of course, because this book is 10 years out there. This one says it does actually accept. There we go. Have they actually got a website or not? Maybe they haven't. No, they don't. That's how advanced they are. They don't actually have a website. Oh, principal passed away in October 2013. Okay. No, all right. So that looks like they're dead in the water. Okay. Apologies for that one. I'm still trying to find one that does actually accept science fiction. No science fiction. Because you can definitely hear that thumping noise. That's the dog. Right, here we go. Okay, Marjack. Now this Marjack is actually an interesting one. Let's see if we can find them. www.marjack. Now marjack.com is actually the organisation that published, believe it or not, Frontier Elite 2, I believe. So they were involved in the publishing of Frontier Elite 2 to a degree. They were the agents involved between Frontier, or David Braben as it was then really, and was it Konami or somebody else? I can't remember who actually published it in the end. But anyway, these guys were involved in the publishing of computer games back then, but that was a long time ago. Now they're just books. These guys, according to this, it says here, full-length manuscript, including commercial literary fiction, non-fiction, crime, thrillers, commercial, women's fiction, children's, science fiction, yay! History, biography, sport, travel and health. No poetry, right? Who likes poetry, right? Send the first 3 chapters with synopsis. Okay, so let's see what their website now says. Let's have a look at some of their authors. Now there should be some names on here we know. Ben Hatch, yes. Rachel Phipps, yes. Mary Chambers, yes. So a few, not like super big names, but a few that you probably will have heard of. Matt Wazowski, Eva Woods, yes. So a few. Now submissions. Are they open for submissions? Right. Okay, they are. Excellent. We accept submissions by email only. We handle full-length fiction and non-fiction for adults and children. We also look at factual TV and original screenplays. No children's picture books, poetry, plays or musical theatre. Please email your submission to the agent you think is best fit to consider your submission. Okay, so we need to look at the agent. You can see what agents represent and what they're looking for on the people page. Okay, so we need to write a synopsis, total file size not exceeding 2 megabytes, right, so let's have a look at the people page. So this one, they have specific agents in the organisation looking at particular genres and stuff. Okay, so represents thrillers, commercial fiction and non-fiction, represents commercial and accessible literary fiction, non-fiction, represents the screen and screenwriters, small publisher, small company, finance and law, commercial genre, speculative fiction, that's kind of science fiction there, literary fiction, some commercial fiction and non-fiction, represents children's middle grade and young adult books and some other. So if we were going to submit, the only person we would be able to actually talk to is this Sandra lady. Okay, so again, not a very strong link up. So if we've got an amazing science fiction book, or we've got an amazing fantasy novel in the offing, again, I don't think this agent would be on the shortlist. Okay, they're not specifically interested enough to sort of say. So this is your task, okay? As a prospective writer wanting to get traditional published, finding yourself an agent in the first place. Okay, you've got to find an agent that's actually interested in your genre, and then you've got to follow their rules. Okay, submission rules. All right, submission guidelines here. Okay, what does it tell you to do? Leah is currently not accepting submissions from North American writers. Sorry, guys. Only British ones right now. Apologies about it. Or US and Canada. Just to be clear. What else is in North America apart from the US and Canada? But there we go. So, you may be thinking, well, these guys come across as really snooty. And to be honest, they kind of are. Okay, and they are by design, okay, because they don't want to deal with the riffraff, right? They don't want to deal with people who aren't taking the work seriously. They only want stuff coming in there that actually is pretty decent already. So if you're not prepared to do your 3 chapters, if you're not prepared to write your synopsis, if you're not prepared to follow their guidelines to the letter, literally to the letter, and do it properly, this isn't the way to go, right? So find yourself an agent who's the right kind of an agent. Pitch it exactly as they tell you to pitch it, and then kind of fingers crossed. Okay, if they like what you've got, then you'll get a letter back saying, "This is fantastic. We're going to submit this to Gallant straight away, and you'll be a millionaire by next week." What's much more likely to happen is you'll get an email or a note back from them saying, "Thanks, but no thanks." Okay, that is your rejection letter. Okay, that's the rejection letter that everybody tells for. Rejection letters don't come from the publishers; they come from the agents. Okay, if you get an agent, you're most of the way there to getting your book published. There's no guarantee, even if you've got an agent, that you're going to get your book published, but you've got a much better chance with an agent than without one. But as you can see, it's a process that's fraught with odd difficultness, if that's a word. Not being funny, but agents are there to make money, right? they're a business just as much as the publishers are. So the agent needs to be really confident your book is going to make the publisher lots of money, because basically the agent gets a cut of that money and you get a cut of that money. So if it doesn't go ka-ching pretty quickly, it's not going to work for anybody. It is a business. It is a business. It's got to make money. If they don't think it's going to make money, you're dead in the water. It's as simple as that. Okay, so you need to have a pretty surefire blockbuster novel ready to rock and roll in order to get successfully through that route. Now, the problem with that is, if you're a brand new writer, you've got nothing else in your portfolio to point at to go, look at me, I'm brilliant, because you haven't been brilliant yet. Okay, so it's really, really hard to break in to this whole process unless you've got something else you can point at to go, look, well, that was successful. So sometimes building up a certain amount of work of your own accord isn't necessarily a bad thing, because it gives you something you can at least point to. So before you find an agent and paying for professional editing and reviewing, yes, because basically when you submit to an agent, they will always ask for two things: the first 3 chapters and the synopsis. Okay, now the first 3 chapters tells them, can you pull together an enticing story? Can you write, basically? Is your grammar good? All the things that we've talked about in editing, all the things we've talked about in construction and rules and dialogue and characters and everything that we've already talked about on this stream. If you can distill that into the first 3 chapters and make them amazing, and you can write a synopsis about what happens in the rest of the story, and it all looks great and they like it, yes, you're in a good place. You have to, in order to get through that route, you have to polish those bits, the first 3 chapters, to such a shine to get through that gate. So you will not make it without professional editing and reviewing and stuff. Okay, the first 3 chapters are wonderful. The rest, that's really, really bad. But you need to apply the same quality standards to the entire thing. You just need to pay more attention to the first 3 chapters, because that's what they go for. So if your book doesn't jump out amazingly in the first 3 chapters, you won't get anywhere. Okay, so you're advised to spend all your time and energy as much as you can on those first 3 chapters if you want to go that route. Now, it's hard. Okay, it's hard. I've only really got this from speaking to other people, because I've never really tried it, because I knew it was very. I looked at it and thought, I'm not writing in the genre. I'm ignoring some of the rules of the trade here by making up my own genres. I'm not really doing this for commercial success. So I kind of figured early on, I'm not really the target audience for this kind of publishing route. So I've not done it. I've never even bothered to pursue an agent. I might try that in the future, but right now I've just, I'm still kind of writing for, because I like writing my stories, and I don't really want anybody telling me, you've got to change this for commercial sensitivities, etc., etc. Why did I have a copy of it? Well, I wanted to know how it worked, and this book is full of all sorts. It's not just a list of the various bits and pieces. It's lots of good advice. So if you look at the contents page, it's got things like, getting started, how does stuff work, understanding the publishing process, notes from successful authors, and things like that, and resources for writers, copyright, libel questions, financing things. There's all sorts of information in this book. It's not just a list. That's a big part of it, but there's quite a lot of stuff in. Now, I've never felt the need to buy another copy, and this one's now 12 years old, so and as you can see, it's not particularly well thumbed. I've gone through it and had some. It is interesting. Okay, not quite just for the stream. No, I did buy it quite long ago, but that route is very, very hard to get into. You're facing a gatekeep, basically. Okay, it's gatekeeping. Libel, how to, see page 300. You're facing gatekeeping. Okay, it's as simple as that. They're trying as hard as they can to keep out the dross, which isn't a bad thing, really. But it means that your manuscript has to be super impressive. Your submission has to be super impressive. Everything about how you approach them has to be super professional, super tidy, exactly as they want it to be. And you have to find a literary agent that gets what you're doing, right? And has to be aligned with what you're doing. So if you're wanting to basically throw away the traditional rules of publishing and, you know, cross-genre guidelines and, you know, make a 4-book epic where actually 3-book epics are de rigueur, then you're not going to fit. Okay, so you may find that about the problem. The number in there, actually, trying to find a literary agent who actually does like, or specifically likes, science fiction or fantasy, quite tough. So there we go. So specific question, you have Fantastic Book Publishing, you went right to them without an agent. No, I didn't actually. Fantastic Books Publishing, I encountered them through a writing competition back in, it was before Elite actually, so when would that have been? 2009? 2010? Somewhere around the point I was starting to look at how to take these sort of things seriously. They were running a writing competition. And this is another good way. If a publisher offers a writing competition, that can be a way, and that's how it worked for me. So they had a science fiction writing competition, short story competition. And I thought, I remember seeing it online. I remember thinking, well, that's worth a punt. I've got a few short stories that I've written. Maybe I can polish one up and see if it flies. And so I sent in a book, a story it's called Metal, actually. It's basically sort of post-apocalyptic type story. It's in one of their anthologies now, I think. I sent in this without much expectation that it would be picked up, because, you know, they receive, I don't know, hundreds of entries, I expect. Anyway, so I sent this in, kind of fire and forget kind of thing. I'd done a good job on it. At least I felt I had at the time, and I'd spent a lot of time sorting it out. Metallic, like ironic, yeah, exactly. So I mean, even if you don't win, they might go, you know what, this isn't bad, and that's kind of what happened. I didn't win. Okay, I didn't win the competition. I didn't even come in the top 3, but I think I came in the top 10. And they basically came back and said, we really liked your book, your story, but it wasn't good enough to win the competition. If we worked with you, would you be interested in putting in an anthology of sci-fi stories? We've got, I think a 15 tale anthology of sci-fi stories, and your book, your story is good enough to be in that. Is that interesting? And I went, yeah, let's do that. Now that introduced me to the way that their editing process worked, and that was quite an eye-opener, because I don't know if I've still got it actually. Let's see. That will tell us when it was actually. Let's just go and have a quick look. Did I keep it? I probably did, because I'm good like that. Metal, there it is. So when is it dated? No, I've copied it across from the server since, so that looks like 2012. It definitely was before that, and some of those dates are wrong. So there's my story that I originally wrote. There we go. Now, oddly enough for me, a first-person story, I hardly ever write first-person stories, but I had on this particular one. It's not a particularly long story. How long is it? Anyway, it had to be 1,500 words. There we go. 5,000. My memory's failing. But it's 1,500 words. Okay, so it's 4 pages of story. Now that's what I sent them. It didn't win the competition, but they did say, "Look, can we run it through our editing thing, for potential inclusion in an anthology?" Yeah, sure. So this is what came back from their editing process. You notice that. Because they kind of basically edited it for me, kind of assuming I was an amateur. Evidence of Drew being succinct, exactly. It came back, with 250 words chopped out of it. I don't know if I've got the actual. That's after the editing. I don't know if I've got the actual edited doc. Doesn't look like I have, unfortunately. But it's been edited, and it was edited well. And I remember thinking, okay, so there's quite a lot to this editing business. I was still learning quite a lot about this sort of stuff. At the time, and that's the one that eventually ended up, and I don't know which one it ended up in. Notice one of the big things that you can see is if you look at the ending here, the ending in the version that finished up was their God never answered, utterly indifferent to their plight, full stop, end of story. In my original one, I had ended it with their God never answered, utterly indifferent to their plight. We've destroyed many worlds with our industry. Countless others are smothered in pollution, crime, and filth from which they will never recover. Yet we utterly destroyed this world by mere greed. Basically, the editing, I remember this quite clearly. The editing comment was, stop whacking people over the head with the end of the story, Drew. We get it, okay? You don't need to tell us. So this is classic show don't tell stuff, right? And I remember I got to the end of this. I remember thinking, okay, wow. So this was actually a really helpful process. I learned a lot about editing through this, and that must be the final. Yeah, that's just the PDF version. Doesn't tell us anything new. Yeah, that'll be the final version. That I suppose actually is the first story I ever had published with them. Now, basically, that came out, and they got a lot of feedback from it. Basically, saying, getting a lot of feedback on metal. It's actually turned out to be the favourite story in the anthology. I was like, yay! Lots of people commenting on it, which was really good. So it's published in multiple places. They said, "Are you working on anything else?" And I said, "Yes, I'm working on something much bigger." "Ooh," they said, "what are you working on?" And I said, "I'm working on something called the Shadewood Saga." "What's that then?" I said, "I'm working on book 1 of the Shadewood Saga. It's going to be, I think, 5 books. It's a sort of sci-fi fantasy epic." And they went, "Okay, sounds interesting." That's the only note of caution entering email tone at this point. They said, "Well, how far have you got?" And I said, "Well, I'm about 2/3 of the way through the first book. I have plotted out the entire thing so I know what's going on, because that's the kind of guy I am. And I'm more than happy to send you the first 3 chapters if you'd like to have a read." So they said, "Yes, please. You can do that." So somewhere along the line, I did do that. I can't remember what it was. They basically read the first 3 chapters of Shadewood and said, "We like this. It needs quite a bit of work based on what we read, but we like it. Would you be interested in publishing it with us?" So that's how that conversation with them got started, and we got Shadewood 1 out. And then this thing called Elite happened. Okay.
I didn't understand that.
Shut up. Stupid woman inside my phone. So that's how that process happened for me with Fantastic. It was a bit unusual. That's not normally how it happens. But smaller publishers, I mean, technically, Fantastic Books is a kind of indie publisher. They're a small specialist niche outfit. Okay, they're not really a big publisher. So you may have a lot of luck if you can find an indie publisher that likes the sort of stuff that you do. The small indie publishers you can approach in person. Okay, they kind of don't quite count as traditional publishers because they don't do it the traditional way. But they are a publisher in that regard. So that's how I got started with them. Now, on the basis that Shadewood 1 sold pretty well, and then there were more coming, when the opportunity to write for Elite came up, which actually totally derailed Shadewood 2, totally delayed it by a long time. I basically saw the Elite Dangerous Kickstarter, saw the whole writer's pack story. That's ancient legend now. But stop it! What are you doing? Stupid phone. I don't know what it is. I'm triggering it with some word. I don't know what it is. So Fantastic Books Publishing knew me through Shadewood by that point. So when the Elite Dangerous Kickstarter came up and there was an opportunity to write fiction, I thought, well, clearly I can do this myself potentially, but in fact I've already got a publisher who's interested in my stuff. And so I explained to Fantastic Books that I'm trying to raise some funds for this Kickstarter to fund a pledge to get myself a writer's pack so that I don't have to shell out 4,500 quid on a book. But this computer game is at least it has the potential to be quite a big deal, depending on how well the game because of course we didn't know what Elite Dangerous was going to be at this point. I said, but Elite goes back to 1984. This is quite a big deal in video games, and here's an opportunity to write a novel for them. And I said to them, if I'm successful in the Kickstarter, would you be prepared to be the publisher? Because it could potentially be quite a major thing. And they basically, pretty much rang me straight back after my email and said, yeah, tell us more about this. This sounds really exciting. So I explained a bit more about how it was going to work. And they said, well, go for it. If you're successful, call us back. And as it happened, I suggested to the other, I didn't know at the time there were going to be other authors successfully getting those writers back, but it turned out there was about 4 or 5 of us in the end. And I suggested to all of them, well, Fantastic Books is publishing my book. They might want to publish yours as well. And then, we can have a box set and all sorts of stuff. Anyway, that's where it all went. Quite exciting at the time. Was that the invisible dog? I don't know. I think it's Bixby or whatever it is that's in my phone. So that, sometimes it's the right place at the right time. But if you see a smaller publisher running a competition, that could be one of the punt too. That's how I got into that game. So that kind of works as well. So wasn't the first Elite book published by Frontier? Yeah. So the original Frontier said they were going to publish one book, and that was the one that Michael Brooks wrote. And I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. I've got a copy of it downstairs. So Michael Brooks was sort of set up by Frontier to write an official book, and then the opportunity was given out to others, anybody who basically could stump up the cash in some way or another, to write another book. Now I didn't have the cash lying about, so I basically created a Kickstarter to fund the pledge on their Kickstarter, which is very complicated, and got me into some trouble. But yeah, it all worked out in the end. So yes, that's how that works. So a non-traditional route. Okay, so you've got traditional publishers that we've kind of talked about at length. Okay, that's quite a complicated thing. Indie publishers who may be receptive to being approached, if you can find a way in, and entering any of the competitions they run or the publicity that they work in is worth a punt. Okay, now your other options are. Was that and Hear the Wheel? No, that's John Harper. I'm just trying to think. Michael Brooks, it must be on Amazon. Well, let's just assume it's on. Let's go have a quick look. You've piqued my curiosity now because I can't remember. Amazon.co.uk. Michael Brooks. Is it? Spelled Michael wrong. Is it Brooks with an E or not? I can't remember. No, it's Brooks with an E. Is it still for sale? Cult of Me, there he is. So he's written some other stuff as well. Has he got his Elite book? There it is, Elite Legacy. There we go. That was the original, I suppose, Elite Dangerous novel. That was the first one. So before any other Elite, mine was definitely not the first. This is the first Elite novel. There we go. Somebody's already found it in the chat. Elite Legacy was Michael Brooks. So that's it there. So and it, he's got 4.5 stars. He's done all right. 24 ratings. That's the one that Michael Brooks wrote. So that was, if you like, the first official novel for Elite Dangerous. I think John Harper beat me to the publishing deadline, so John Harper's book and Hear the Wheel is probably the second. I've got a feeling mine was third, because I think I beat Alan Stroud and Kate Russell to the post. There were also the Gallant's ones. Gallant's Elite Dangerous. There were 3. There we go. Wanted, Docking is Difficult, and Nemorensis. They were also official novels done by Gallant's themselves. So interesting in this particular case, Gallant's, who's a big sci-fi publisher, found out about the Elite Dangerous Kickstarter and thought, we'll pitch in there. We'll buy 3 licenses and then hand them off to some of our authors to write Elite Dangerous novels. So they did that. So Gavin Diaz, Gideon Defoe and Simon Spurrier, who were at the time, I don't know if they still are, but at the time were Gallant's authors, were effectively tasked with write an Elite Dangerous novel, and those are the 3 that came out of that. So, and that's what we were up against. I must admit, when I originally saw 3 Gallant authors are going to write Elite Dangerous novels, my heart kind of went, oh shit. Because I was like, oh no, now the serious guys have got in on the deal. We're going to be completely wiped out because we're just a bunch of enthusiastic amateurs doing this. But at the end of the day, in this particular instance, the fact that myself and the others were fans, in-depth, die-hard fans of Elite Dangerous and Elite and all the other things at the time, paid out. Now these books didn't do too badly. I mean, you got 31 reviews, 77 and 65, so they did all right. But if we look at, Alan Stroud, what was his called? Lay Revolution. How did he do by comparison? 81. So he beat the professional authors at their own game because Elite Dangerous knowledge, right? Knowledge of Elite. Kate Russell. What's that called? Mostly Harmless. So she got 161. Okay, she was ahead for most of the period of time, actually. Hers was certainly in the first year or so by far the most popular Elite book. Mostly, I think, because she was an Elite fan and very, very prominent streaming at the time, early on. Much more kind of in the limelight. Plus, she was a BBC Click reporter, so she had a far bigger fan base than any of the rest of us did. She was actually kind of almost a household name. Compared to the rest of us who were completely unknown. But I, without wanting to blow my trumpet too much, I eventually did win. So my book had more staying power for a longer period of time. So I ended up with 337 reviews. So I can claim to be the most successful Elite Dangerous author there was. Which is quite nice. But But that was a weird combination of events. Okay, that was a weird combination of events that led me into that particular position, which is unlikely to be repeated. And sometimes it's just a case of being in the right place at the right time. Okay, so that's how that works. So traditional publishing, agents, very complicated, fraught with difficulty, potentially big rewards, but again, not guaranteed. Lots of hard work. Indie publishing, I would recommend that route actually, because you're more likely to find a publisher who's interested in what you're doing, and more specific to the type of genre, and more willing to take a punt on stuff that's a bit different. Okay, so indie publishers have a lot of advantages. They don't have the reach, they don't have the marketing budget, they don't have the ability to put thousands of copies of your books in every Waterstones in every country across the world, but they may allow you to make that stepping stone up. The next one, okay, so there's 2 left, and we've been talking for a while, but Vanity Publishing. Okay, this is where you basically pay a publisher and say, right, I want my book published, and I will chuck some money at you. Now, there are a lot of organisations on the web that will take your money and publish your book for you. Okay, now the thing is, if you're paying somebody to publish your book, they don't care if your book is quality or not. All right, they don't care if your book is quality. I just missed that chat there. New introduction from Nienke 123456. Hello, I'm Dutch, so my English is bad, but I'm going to try. Good to see you. Well, thank you for popping onto the stream. I appreciate appreciate you popping in. If I'm not entirely clear to you, that's entirely my fault. So feel free to ask any questions if anything doesn't make any sense. This is a very light-hearted, laid-back stream. So if you have any questions at all, feel free to just chuck them in the chat and say hi to everybody else in the stream. It's a friendly bunch of chatterers. Is that the right word? Anyway, join in. So traditional publishing, vanity publication is basically you pay somebody to publish your book. The only reason vanity publishing makes any sense is if you've got stack loads of cash and you don't really care. Okay, now that doesn't apply to most of us. Vanity publishing is kind of a last resort when everything else has failed or you can't be bothered. So I can't really think of a genuinely good reason why you would vanity publish, unless you specifically just want to say, I published a book, done. Because a vanity publisher doesn't care about the quality of your book. A vanity publisher doesn't really care about anything other than getting your cash, all right, in exchange for printing out, some couple of copies of books. So what you'll get from a vanity publisher is, they'll do all the bits and pieces that they need to do, like ISBNs and all that kind of stuff, and formatting your book into a book format, and then you'll pay a stack load of money, and you'll get, a box of books back, and there you are. You're a published author. But does it actually mean anything? They might put it on Amazon for you and various other bits and pieces. So, if a publisher is basically saying, give us your money and we will publish a book, that's kind of not really a genuine publisher. You should expect from a publisher, you should expect to be paid. Okay, if you're not being paid for your book in some fashion, you're not really being published. And if you're that desperate for your book to be a book, and yet nobody else will take it, then dare I say it, there may be something wrong with your book. Okay, so vanity publishing is only there if you have stack loads of cash and you desperately want to have your book published and you don't want to do all the rest of the other stuff. Okay, money should flow to the artist. Exactly right. You've created something, you should be paid for your work, right? You should be paying somebody else to turn it into a thing. If you really want to get your book out there, there's these people who can print your book and it will cost approximately this and that. Yeah, so I wouldn't. Okay, it's there. I mentioned it for completeness, but I certainly wouldn't do that. I know one person who's done it, and that was actually a family friend of mine, a family friend of my family, years and years and years and years and years ago. I've no idea what the book was. Neither had anybody else. And I think after being rejected by the traditional route, just gave up and chucked some money at somebody because he wanted his book to be published. But not a route I recommend. Okay, so those are those three. Now the fourth one is self-publishing. Okay, now a lot of people, and they're wrong by the way. But a lot of people will say, yes, but self-publishing, that's just vanity publishing by another name. It isn't. Okay, it isn't. It very much isn't. Self-publishing is simply you looking at the way these things work and going, I'm going to do that myself. Just do it. I'm just going to do it myself. Because the problem with all the other methods, forget about the vanity publishing one, the problem with all the other methods is you, the author, have done most of the work. Okay. Yes, there's editors involved. Yes, there's a cover illustrator. Yes, there's some marketing. Yes, there's some production stuff. And I don't want to downplay that because there's a lot of work that goes on there. But you, the author, have spent the emotional energy and the time to write a novel. Now, you've probably spent a year writing a novel at the very least. Okay, if you put the effort in. Now, that's a lot of time, right? So you have done most of the work. Okay. Now, to give you a flavour, an indie publisher will probably, on average, for every book that you sell, you will probably get about 25% of the profits of selling that book. Okay, that's an indie publisher. All right. Okay, so if your book retails for, let's make the maths easy, £4, right, or £3.99. You're going to get a quid. Okay, that's what you're going to get. That's through an indie publisher. Okay, that's 25% of the revenue of your book, right? Now that's pretty good. Okay, just to set your expectations. You may think, that's really bad. No, that's actually really good. Okay, getting 25% of the proceeds of your book sale is pretty good. Okay, that's pretty good. And that's what you can probably expect with an indie publisher. You go with a traditional publisher, that percentage is going to be lower than that, okay, because they're hoping to sell more so you get more profit, but your cut, if you like, is going to be way lower than 20%. Okay, now you may be thinking, okay, so hang on, every book I sell, so if even it sells for full price, 6, 7, 8, 9 quid, depending on the format, you're going to be getting probably less than £1, and you can switch that into dollars for whatever currency you're in. you can you can start to see how the maths works out. So even if you have, by traditional publishing so measurements, a good success, i.e. a bestseller novel, something upwards of 10,000 copies, your profit, or not even your profit, your income, your revenue, isn't going to be that big. Okay, you need to sell upwards of 150,000 copies of your book to earn a decent living off it. Okay, if that's the only thing you've got through a traditional publishing route. Now, if you can write, if you're an established writer, let's say like, I know Clive Cussler or something, and you could knock out a action adventure novel every 6 months, and everybody will buy it in the airport on their way through for a summer blockbuster, and you're guaranteed to sell 500,000 copies. Yay! Everybody's happy. Everybody loves you. Okay, but the economics of books do not add up to a vast amount of cash for you, the author, particularly on your first book, because who the hell are you? We don't know who you are. We don't know you're going to be successful. We're not going to take too much of a punt on you because you're an unproven, unknown quantity. So unless your book is staggeringly successful first time out, you may find even if you do land a traditional publishing contract, you may not be able to get another one unless your initial book is really, really successful. Because unless you sell tens of thousands of copies of it, you weren't successful. And there's all sorts of complicated stuff in there about remaindering and books that get printed and have to get returned and blah 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 blah, in that sort of thing. So the numbers aren't good. Okay, the numbers aren't good. Now, an indie publisher, your percentage will be higher, maybe 25, perhaps even 30% comes to you, the author, which is good. So for your £4 book, you might be getting kind of £1.33. Ooh. Okay, it's better, but you can start to see the amount of money you can expect to make versus the number of books sold is a pretty easy piece of maths, right? If you're earning what's the minimum wage in the UK now? 20. Well, I don't know, what's the average wage in the UK? 25,000 a year, something like that. In order to achieve the average wage in the UK, which is not all that generous, really, you'd have to be selling 250,000 books a year. Okay. Very few people manage that, right? Very few people manage that. I certainly have never managed anything close to that. All right. My best year, I've probably sold 10,000 books, I've had years where I haven't sold anywhere near that number. So it's not lucrative unless you really make it big. Now, an awful lot of people look at that and go, well, hang on a minute. If I write a really good book and it's traditionally published, but for whatever reason it doesn't quite hit the traction, doesn't sell, then I've got a few thousand quid that I've made, but the traditional publisher's gone and basically, well, that didn't work, we're not going to try you again. And so you may close off that route, okay, even if you're successful, okay? So that's the thing to consider. Your indie publisher might be able to sell 5, 10,000, 15,000 copies of the book, but you're not going to make that much money, okay? You're really not going to make that much money. An indie publisher does not have the marketing reach to spam your book everywhere that people potentially would want to go and see it. So it's fraught with danger. Okay, it's fraught with danger. Now, this is where the indie publishing comes in. Now, if you are up for it, indie publishing means that you have to obviously write the novel. We've talked about all those things already. You're going to have to figure out, you either pay somebody to edit it professionally, and let's take an average book. So if you wanted to edit Shadewood 1, which is a 120,000 word book, that's going to cost you about £1,000 in UK money. Okay, about £1,000 for a professional edit of that. Okay, you're going to have to get somebody to do the cover art. If you might be able to do it yourself, but even that is, ideally you want somebody who kind of knows what they're doing to do a cover. I don't know, £300, £400, £500 for a really, really good cover. You're going to have to do all the blurb and all the internal formatting yourself. You're going to have to buy the ISBN. That's not particularly expensive, but it's a faff. You're going to have to learn how to do that. You're going to have to format it and get it all done. And now we've been through that process on this very stream. So if you look back in the archives of some of the stuff we did, years and years and years ago, you'll find the process of turning it into a manuscript. Now it's doable, but it's laborious and it's quite hard work, and you have to spend quite a lot of time doing. But it is possible to do it on your own. Outlets like Amazon now provide all the tools you need to create and format not only an ebook but a paperback book as well, and sometimes even hardback books. Okay, so it's hard, but it's doable, and it allows you to have complete creative control. As Americans would say, soup to nuts. I don't know what that means, but I assume it means beginning to end. Okay, you can make the thing that you are creating exactly how you want it to be, which is something you won't have with an indie publisher or a traditional publisher, because they do the cover art, they do the synopsis, they do the blurb, they do a bunch of other stuff, and you might not be entirely. That's not quite how I would have done it, but that's out of your hands now because they're the publisher. Whereas with doing it yourself, you have 100% control. You can do it. It's doable, right? It is. We've done it on this very stream. So and the good news is that, barring the costs of an Amazon or whatever it happens to be, there's no other people involved in the equation. So now Amazon as the marketplace charges you 30%. Okay, 30% of the proceeds of sale of your book will go to Amazon if you put it on Amazon. All right. So the best you can get is 70% of your book if you sell it via Amazon. Now that's okay, particularly if there aren't any other middlemen. So your £4 book is getting you £3 and a bit every time it sells. Okay, which sounds pretty good, but okay, you've had to shell out already £1,500 to get your book to that stage, not counting all the effort that you've put in to create the book in the first place. So it's not a no-cost option. You need to factor that in. Depending on how you do your editing and how you do your cover art, you may be able to find cheaper alternatives, but you've got to do those well, so your book looks quality. So how long is it going to take you to earn back that £1,500 and the time you put into writing the book? That's an equation only you can do. But let's just take the actual act. Let's assume your own labour is free, as far as you're concerned. You're going to have to, at that cost, you're going to have to sell 500 books before you even break even. Okay, let's assume we paid £1,000 for editing and £500 on the cover. 500 books before we break even. After that, we start paying ourselves for the year of effort we put into writing the book. Okay. Now, again, going back to, let's say we want to earn $25,000 a year as an average salary. At £3 a book, you can do the math. How long does it take? How many book sales does it take to pay for a salary of $25,000 a year? It's a lot. That's basically the answer. Okay. You need to sell whichever route. If you want to make money, proper, i.e. you can pay the mortgage and live on it kind of money, you need to be selling thousands and thousands of books a year. Okay, there's no other way around it. Thousands and thousands of books a year, regardless of the route. Now, in order to do that, you need marketing, and that's the subject of another stream, I think, is how the hell do you market your book? Because one of the big problems is you've done all this work, you've written a book, you've got the cover, you've got the all the editing done. It looks brilliant. You press the publish button and it appears on Amazon 2 days later. Yay! I've published it, right? And the problem is, at the same time as you've pressed the publish button, 6 billion other people on the planet have also pressed the publish button, and they've got their book, which is brilliant and amazing, and everything else is on Amazon. Okay, and your book just disappears in a vast sea of content. How do you bring your book out to the fore? So that's a topic for another stream. But the bottom line is, to make money with writing, you have to be extraordinarily lucky. Okay, you have to be extraordinarily lucky. You have to do all the other stuff as well. You have to pretty much have a great book, a great cover, a great blurb, great presentation, etc., 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 etc. Those are kind of givens. That's the entry criteria. It isn't always the case, because there is some dross on there that gets published. I mean, there are plenty of novels, alas, which are rubbish, which make it big. But that's where the marketing and the hype and the sheer luck, sometimes just being in the right place at the right time with the right idea, comes into the equation. We'll have a bit of a chat about that on another stream. But if you're looking at this thinking, yay, right, I'm going to write a book, I'm going to be successful, and I'm going to, my money worries will stop. No. Don't even think about it. It's so unlikely to happen. I promise you, it's so unlikely to happen. Because you need to sell thousands and thousands and thousands of books each year. Okay? And you may be thinking, well, I've written a book, yay! And even if your book is really successful, it'll be flavour of the month for a period of time. If there isn't a follow-up, or if your second book isn't really very good, the classic one of these is the guy who wrote Ready Player One. Okay, Ready Player One, blockbuster success, film made out of it. Brilliant book, really good fun. Okay, Ready Player Two, sunk like a stone, because he just didn't put the effort in, as far as I can tell. You can be successful with your first book and go, yeah, I'm on the road, to fame and fortune, and then your second book flops, and that's it. You're only as good as your last book. Nobody remembers the one before that. And as a result, it's a very precarious profession as well. So my advice, my approach to this has always been, I write because I want to write, and the publishing is something that maybe happens. And if people like my stuff, great. But I'm not pinning my financial security on it, because that would be insane, right? Ready Player 2 is the third book, is it? What else had he written then? Was it Ready Player 0? But Ready Player 2 still got a movie deal. Yeah, so we'll see if it actually transpires. Is it actually out, that movie? But as an actual book, it was very much panned. But people like sequels. A movie, it's kind of one of those things. If it's got brand recognition, this is where the whole brand recognition thing and the hype comes in. Because if you chuck a load of marketing at things, you can sell anything if you've got the marketing budget. And we'll talk a bit about marketing. In the next stream. Insert coin. Having a good book is the entry criteria. Okay, if you haven't got a good book, don't even bother trying. Right, you've got to have a good book to start with. Something that people are going to enjoy reading. And then like I say, you've got the choice. So self-publishing, do it all yourself. Keep most of the money, but you've got to do all the legwork yourself. Vanity Publishing, which I would kind of throw away, there's not really an option. Indie Publishing, which is good, but probably it's not going to have the reach to make you a household name. But you may be able to use it to build yourself up bit by bit. Traditional publishing, kind of a long shot. The old-fashioned way of getting into things. You could make it very, very big, but the odds are very much stacked against you in that particular thing. And as you've seen, wading through this, for our favourite genre here of science fiction and fantasy, nobody's interested. Don't do that. Some people can maybe be sniffy about certain genres as well, as we talked about. Now, there's a lot more detail, and if you really want to delve into it, I do recommend getting a copy of this. It's actually quite an interesting read. There's plenty of stuff to delve into there, but. And of course, nowadays there's there's things like this. There's streaming, there's YouTube, there's blogs, there's websites, there's social media. There's all sorts of other ways to connect with audiences and connect with readers and connect with authors and all sorts of other bits and pieces. Okay, and you need to be paying attention to all of those things in order to build up a kind of groundswell about the story that you're telling. And we'll talk a little bit about. Talk about marketing next week. Drew, the odds of navigating a traditional publisher, 3,712 to 1. Never tell me the odds. It's kind of like that, really. So there we go. But those are the kind of key roles. That's how you go about publishing a novel. Blogs are so much the 2010s. Yeah, so it's all TikTok now. I mean, I haven't even got a TikTok account, so maybe I can't imagine what I would do on TikTok. Do really, really succinct, do it in 3 minutes. What? It's just an impossibility. So I don't know, but TikTok is the biggest website now, I think, in the entire internet. So there you go. That's where the cool kids are. Certainly, my kids play a lot of TikTok stuff. I don't know what I would say on TikTok. But yeah, I mean, one thing I will say on that note is the audiobooks were a big surprise to me in terms of the way people consume books. When I started on this back in probably 2008, 2009, paperbacks were everything. Okay, some people bought them on ebook, but not very many. Paperbacks were where everything was, kind of, traditional book stuff, right? However, over the last decade, paperback sales of my books have taken a big nosedive, which have been completely taken up by ebooks. In the last 3 years, the sales of audiobooks of my books, if that makes sense, have exceeded ebooks. More people are now consuming my stories in audiobook format than they are in actual text. I don't know why, but that's just what my sales figures show. So I'm on a big push now, as I've mentioned before, to make sure all of my books are available in audio. And as I go forward, what I was doing is creating the book and then making it come out on Audible a little bit later. What I'm now going to be doing is producing the audiobook at the same time, so I can launch the whole lot together. And that's just in response to what people are buying. Okay, it's maybe demographic. It's maybe people don't have time to read, but they like listening to stuff. I don't know, but it's a big change that I've noticed. So the market itself evolves. If you can get Stephen Fry to record your audiobook, you're good. Well, I'm fortunate enough that my voice appears to be good enough to narrate my own stuff. Railcreep says, I like audiobooks when I'm driving, since you can do other stuff while listening. I think that's a big deal. Even even the stats I get from Twitch and YouTube indicate that most people are watching my waffles on mobile devices. Now I'm sitting in front of a PC as I create these things, right? And I tend to regard the PC as the thing upon which I create. But the thing upon which my content is consumed is very different. People are watching my YouTube videos, watching my Twitch streams, and listening to my audiobooks. The vast majority of them are consuming them on mobile devices. It's just the way it is. And I'm kind of looking at it thinking, really? Well, people are wandering around the house with me waffling in their ear whilst they're cooking food. But that's apparently what people are doing. I mean, it's whatever, right? Okay. Your voice is good enough to listen to you waffle, let alone a book you put a lot of effort. Well, there we go. Thank you very much. Feather of the Crow, I do appreciate it. So that's, so is that a demographic shift because of different age population just consuming content in a different way? I don't know. I don't know enough about it, but that's what I kind of suspect is happening. And you just kind of got to roll with it, right? Just got to roll with it. The story is a story, regardless of the medium. Now, the medium does change the story a little bit, but that is, at the end of the day, it's still a story. You need to have a story to tell. And that's what I kind of do. Now, I'm still experimenting with all these things. I'm by no means an expert, but I'm exploring the art of the possible on these things. What do people want? It seems that the audio is very, very popular because people can consume it anywhere, and then even when they're transitioning in activities. So, for example, if you get off the train and get into your car, or you get off the train, get into the car and go to the gym, you can continue consuming the content. It seems to be a big deal for people nowadays. Whereas, trying to hold a book while you're driving, don't do that. Etc., etc., etc. So, we need video. We need video for the hat. Yes, yeah. People like nudes. Only some nudes. Buffo. Sorry, Drew, you were saying something. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, my friends, that was quite a long stream actually. So, well, I mean, it was quite a long waffle. I mean, it's been a while since I've been streaming, so apologies for slowly getting back into the thing. But I hope you found that one interesting. It's quite an interesting topic, and it's always evolving. So watch this space on that particular thing. Next week we'll talk a little bit about the marketing side of things. We've kind of touched on a little bit here. Don't read and drive. You might miss a paragraph. I will see you anon. Thursday, of course, is No Man's Sky, isn't it? So I need to get back into that with a new update. There is something happening in Elite Dangerous tomorrow, so I actually get to log in for the first time in God knows how long, and just sort of see what goes down. I'm just curious to see what goes down. If I do have time to make that live, I might stream it, but depending on what time it is. So if I do, I do. If I don't, I don't. Thursday is No Man's Sky. Friday is Star System, which has also had a big update. All these updates, stuff's happening. This is good. Saturday, I'm afraid I can't do the retro stream. I think the retro stream will be returning the week after that. So I've got to remember where the heck we were with X Beyond the Frontier, because there's been quite a big hiatus on that one. But it will be back. We will continue with the retro stream, and then things will calm down as we get to September, I hope, and then things become a bit more regular again. So, and I need to get back to doing some writing as well. Otherwise I'll be in trouble. So there we go. Anyway, my friends, be good. Take it easy, and I will see you anon. And as always, right on. See you soon, my friends. Bye bye now.